Natalie, select that.
Reminder.
Perfect. I also just sent a request for, oh, there it goes, for share screen too. Perfect. Well, I'm super excited to talk to y'all today. I am Natalie. I own Nat Marie Designs, which is a local to San Antonio, small boutique design and marketing studio. I work with people all over the country, but what I really love to hone in on is branding. It's what I nerd out about. And so I'm excited to talk to you guys about it today. But I'll give you a little bit of our agenda. So what we're going to do is talk through like the different steps of defining your brand. So a lot of that is some upfront work on, discovering who you are, what is making your business stand out, creating a really great logo. And then we're going to talk through some of the pieces outside of just a logo. And that's going to be your brand guide, and then even elements like your website and things like that. But I kind of already introduced myself just so you can see a little bit of the human behind who's going to be talking at you the next hour. Like I said, I run Nat Marie Designs. I've been in San Antonio for about 3.5 years now, but I moved around up in the Midwest area. So if we've got anybody from like Ohio or Pennsylvania, that's kind of the area I grew up in. And Arnold, you can see my dogs here. I had to.
Yeah, that would be me. Ohio and Pennsylvania. I moved here from Ohio. Born
No
and raised in
way.
Pennsylvania.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, and then my family's all in Cincinnati now. So
There you go.
yeah, that's
We got a
awesome.
lot in common.
Yeah, very cool. I love my Midwesterners. But we'll dive right into the presentation too. So what I like to do to start is kind of talk through what is a brand, because I think that's just this blanket term that's thrown out a lot of times in business, branding this, branding that, and really the base of what a brand is it's the perception of your business. So the way I like to think about it is, if your business was a person, your branding is going to be its personality, its style, kind of tone of voice, humor, all of that. It's kind of that like human connection side to business. Business is more about, honing in on your craft and making money, but the goal of branding is to create that connection. And as time moves on, people are more and more falling into investing in brands, not just businesses. They want to feel like they're connected to it, they're connected to the story. A lot of that is, the digital world and how we're coming to life on social media and advertising. But it's super important, like Michael said, to really make sure you take time for branding, because you could be the best that you are at your industry, but if your brand isn't doing some of that work to show your professionalism, to show your style, then it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Like you want to make sure that your marketing is set up to prove to the world that you are the best at what you're doing, and that you're really great, and your key differentiators and things like that. Um, and a lot of branding comes to life through design. So I'm a graphic designer, that's what I studied. But your logo, your brand guide, different elements visually are going to show that. So what I like to do is I start with working on, defining your brand. I'll get to know my clients. We do like a mood board series, but really just as you're thinking about your branding, these are some of the prompts that I like to give people. And I have a worksheet version of this too. But thinking about your goals for the future. So, you want to design branding around your goal target audience, and where you're heading. Don't stop with where you're at right now. We're all vision forward, future forward. You want to show up really professional and really headed towards that goal target audience and that dream for your business. And then the next thing I like to talk about is your values and your brand archetype. So this chart here, it's super famous. It's all over, different marketing websites. You can Google it. It's called a brand archetype chart, but it's almost like a personality quiz for your business. There's 12 different, archetypes within here, and they all have a core value and then different attributes that make that. And that will really help people. It's just a tool that a lot of people find helpful for figuring out like your tone of voice and where you stand. You can also look up, where some of the biggest corporations lie on this chart. So For example, your Disney would be a magician. You know, they're all about this clever charisma, but really their core value is to leave a mark. And you can kind of see that with Disney. It's so much more than just a TV channel or movies or, you know, the empire that they've grown into because they had a strong core value on leaving this mark and leaving this legacy on your childhood. And then they were able to build and expand their business beyond that. Another one that kind of leaves a mark too is Harley Davidson. So they'd be right next to Disney on this chart. They're the outlaw. They're doing that same thing. They're building this generational legacy. You know, my grandpa had a Harley, now I have a Harley, whatever. People really fall in love with that brand and they're committed to it because it's leaving that legacy, but they're doing it in a completely different way. They're doing it with leadership and bravery and kind of this risk taker vibe. So this is a really great tool if you're just trying to figure out like, hey, who am I? Where do I fall in this? Where is my business? What is the really like human to human core connection that my business is making with people? A lot of, you know, bankers and financial institutions would be the sage. You're seeking that financial paradise, but you're doing it in this truth-seeking, clarifying way. Schools and different childcare services would be this caregiver. They're providing structure, they're providing some sort of balance to your day, but they're doing it with compassion and patience. So, like I said, if you're interested in this, I have a ton of resources on it. Sometimes it's helpful to see where some of these bigger corporations lie in this too, but I think it's just a good, it's like taking a personality quiz. It's a good assessment for your business. And then from there, you can kind of build out, this is my target audience and this is what makes me different. You don't want to just talk to everybody. The more that you can hone in on a specific target audience and what you're doing to stand out, the more that you can make your branding come to life and really connect with the right people. So I call this all that like brain homework in the beginning. But what it's going to lead to is this last area here, which is that beautiful design style. That's the logos, that's the brand guide, your website. Those are all the elements that take these feelings and these emotions around your business and show the visual perspective of it. So that's step one to branding. I know it seems like a lot, a lot of homework, a lot of deep thinking, but I promise you that when you really think through this and you have these goals in mind, then you're going to build a brand that is leading to your people and, you know, standing out more. I just like to kind of prove that by showing a couple different stories here. So this first one is Sunbum. They're a sunscreen brand, but what's special about them is that they're not just selling their product. They're not just selling, hey, buy our sunscreen's the best, blah, blah, blah. When they have their marketing, when they're showing their logo and things, they're selling the lifestyle of being out on the beach. You know what I mean? Like they know that their audience doesn't really care about sunscreen. What their audience is excited about is taking off work early and going for a hike or going to the beach with your friends or planning a vacation. So they're connecting to that part of it when they're doing their marketing and when they're showing up visually for their business. And sure, they're not talking about sunscreen so much. They'll even say in their marketing, we don't care if it's ours, just use sunscreen, get outside. But they're kind of inspiring a step further than that. And that's why they're so successful. They're more expensive on shelf than other sunscreen companies, but people feel really connected to that story. The next one's Magnolia. So I'm in Texas. Waco is completely transformed, and I think anything that Chip and Joanna touch has been successful. But from the beginning, they position themselves as a brand that's centered around creating space in your home, hosting, having family time. You know, don't just settle for this with your house. Your house is where you're going to be spending most your day. Let's elevate it a little bit. Let's create an experience at home that's very family oriented, that has traditions in mind, that has, you know, slowing down with life in mind. And because of that, any avenue that they touch leads back to that core value. Their, you know, magazines, their TV channels, their stores, all of it is coming and centered around this core value that is so much more than the product or service. It's that human connection that they're building. And then the last one that I like to talk about is Life Water, because I just think they are so fascinating. I mean, if you put yourself in their perspective from a branding marketing standpoint, they're selling the most basic thing there is, water. They don't have a store. People probably don't really follow them on social media or visit their website, so they don't have a strong digital presence. They have about 5 seconds when you're at a gas station, you run in to go to the bathroom on a road trip, and you run out and you grab a water real quick. Or, hey, I'm checking out at a grocery line and I'm thirsty. I'm gonna grab a water for the ride home. So they know that they don't have much to work with, but they're really being creative, and they're trying to connect using their packaging to spark this interest in art. They're gonna stand out on shelf better than anybody else because of these fun, colorful packaging SKUs that they're using, but also they're taking something, an interest totally outside of their industry and bringing it in. Hey, let's just like spark some joy in our day, treat yourself, get the pretty water bottle, get something that you can kind of look at that has some visual interest to it. Some people aren't going to care. Some people are going to go with the cheap water. Some people are going to go with the healthiest water. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to have different interests, but the right target audience is going to say, man, I really like that. Like for me, I'm a graphic designer. That's going to spark some sort of joy in me, and I'm going to grab their water on the way out. So they know that they don't have much to work with marketing wise, but they're still being really creative and telling a story. And that's kind of why this first step here, this, what I'm calling your homework, of crafting your target audience and knowing your goals is so important, because when you get into the visuals, you can craft your visual branding around that story. So next we'll get into the actual visuals, the logo, what everybody wants to know about, what makes a good logo. Something that I see often is logos fall into a camp where they're either visually just way too congested or way too minimal. So I think the first step is to find a logo that meets the middle. All of these logos here, they're telling some sort of story, they're nodding to their industry, but they're not doing it in a way where they have to have a million little sketched out things on there. If you're working on a smoothie shop, you don't have to list every single fruit that you build your smoothies around in the logo. The logo is just one piece of your marketing, so it's going to be in context with what you do and your menu and things like that later. What can this smoothie shop do that makes them stand out, makes them feel colorful and healthy, but not in a way where they're literally drawing out what they're doing? On the other end of that, we don't want to go too minimal. I think this was a trend for a long time where it's just black and white, all caps, name of your business. And if someone looked at it driving by and they see the sign on the side of the highway, they're not going to know what you do. There has to be some sort of personality in your logo that nods to your industry, to your vibe, kind of what you're trying to give off. So I would say finding that middle balance is really important when you're crafting your brand. Your logo is going to be it's the face of your brand. It's the most important part. It's the piece that you're going to see everywhere. So it's definitely worth taking the time to make sure that it's really showing up beautifully and it's telling your story without being, I think sometimes when they're over congested, it can take away from some of that high end feel. So all of these here, I mean, this one, Little Fig, it says down here, Mediterranean cuisine. It doesn't tell you it's a seafood restaurant. It doesn't tell you that they sell fish. You can kind of pick up on some of that because we're showing some of these ocean cues where we've got this cool like hieroglyphic typography that points to the Mediterranean, but then some of these wave themes here are pointing to maybe they sell seafood. Maybe it's more of a coastal environment. This one here, Sonterra Luxury Suites. We're not telling you what the actual architecture of the apartments looks like. We're not telling you a price point either, but you can pick up on it because of that Spanish tile. We don't have to draw out the entire, site of the suite or the apartment. We can show enough of that story and enough of their vibe by showing this Spanish tile in there. This one, Noli, this one's an Italian eatery, pretty casual, you know, we don't have anything super crazy fancy, but it's got this nice casual font to it. Also, what they're famous for is spaghetti, so it's kind of this nice hidden Easter egg to be able to go in and show that as part of their font. We don't have to draw a plate of spaghetti above the logo, and sure, people might not make that connection right away. But when you see this and you see this like casual Italian restaurant, and then you go in and you see on the menu, hey, number one, you know, number one best plate is our spaghetti, then it makes sense. You make that connection later. So I don't have to talk through all of these, but you can kind of get the point. This Uhambo, this one's for a nonprofit in South Africa. We've got some upward motion here with the ladder and the arrow. You know, that's a subtle way to show that we're trying to uplift people. The Wooderson vodka. This client literally said, I want to lean into the 70s. This looks so 70s. You don't have to say that, you can see it. So how can you have some of your design tell that story in a way where it's this nice balance of how much information you're putting out there in the logo, and you don't have to list out everything. It can kind of do the work for you. The next part of your logo that I like to talk through is it conveys a feeling or a theme. So this is pretty similar to what we talked about the first time, but you should be able to kind of imagine what you're going to get out of this business by looking at it. And that's why a lot of people have really, really beautiful high-end services in all different industries. But if their logo isn't high-end, then those two aren't going to match up. In a way, your logo should tell the expectation and kind of the price point of what you're selling here. So that's why what I like to do is really try to specialize in like crafting something that feels a little bit more luxury and high end, because I want my clients to be able to charge around that. That doesn't mean it has to be intimidating. I mean, this Ibis Fine Dining, this is the type of place that looks like a steakhouse or something a little bit fancier and expensive. You can kind of just tell from the typography. This restaurant here to the left, Chili Fuego, also very high end. Maybe they're not super expensive. Maybe it's a family owned restaurant, but it has this vibe to it where it's fun. You know, it has these really strong, fun ingredients that go with it. Maybe there's live music. It has an experience that it's creating. So it doesn't, when I say high end, it doesn't have to be some Michelin star type thing. It can be something that's a little bit more in this casual field, but we're just trying to really show that vibe and that energy with it. Homeward Kitchen, another restaurant, you know, we're showing this in a way where it's comfort food, it's family oriented, it's humble, but it's going to be very elevated for that industry of restaurants. And then even this down here, Preserve Cape May County. Whenever I did this, I was studying some of those old sign paintings that you see in the New England area. So this one is you know, it's tapping into more of like a location base. The Alsace is another location area. I live over near Casterville, and they're all about the Alsatian culture, that German French culture. So how could I bring some of that storytelling into their mark here? But like I said, all of these should be giving off some sort of feeling or theme, so that in the first area, you've got this good balance of design, but in this step number 2, it's setting an expectation, it's setting a price point. And if you're working with a designer, they're gonna learn that about you. You know, our job is to get to know your personality, and how can we extract some of that and tell your story with typography and color and some of these different pieces. And then the third part is to have a full logo family. Another common mistake I see with businesses is they have one version of their logo and then they're stuck. You know, they have to use it in this context. They have to use it on a white background. You should be working with a designer, or you should be building out something that has options to it so that it feels cohesive, but it's not just you're stuck to one logo. You know, mine down here, I can use my monogram if I'm just putting it on the corner of a business card or things like that. But then I can use the full version, both vertically and horizontally, for also different opportunities. So make sure you have a logo family. Some people come to me, they have a logo, they just need to build out the family too. So that's always, you know, if you feel like you've got a foundation, then you can always expand your branding so that you've got this. And then that kind of covers, you know, like I said, your initial homework, your logo. The third part that I like to talk about is your brand guide. A lot of people, everybody has a different familiarity with what brand guides are. But if all you have visually for your business is a logo, then you're also kind of painting yourself in a corner. You need to have different steps, different visual tools that you can use for your website and your social media, your signage, if you're a brick and mortar, all of those things. So what a brand guide does is it lays out the foundation and the heart and soul of the design of your business. So that would be color palette, typography and fonts that you're using, icons, illustrations, patterns, templates, photography, anything visual that can kind of add to your logo. So I'll walk through a couple different examples because I'm a visual person, so I think it's easiest to see it. This one's for a sports bar in Austin, so we're doing some of that homework up front. But we've got their logo, and you know, we have some different versions to it as well. And then color palette, the fonts that they're using. Something interesting with them is they're a sports bar. So how can we provide them icons for maybe different game days? They have a golf simulator, you know, they've got different specials. Let's give them an icon palette for that. They also have different specials each night of the week. Instead of just listing those out in a boring font, that's something we know is consistent with their business. So let's give it a little bit of an edge and give each weeknight one of those personalities. That makes sense for them. You might have an e-commerce store online. You don't need to worry about weekly specials. You might have, you know, you'll be in a completely different industry, but for them, it was something that was fun that we could do to kind of build out their branding more. And then you can see how it starts to come all together. This next one is a spa in the Alamo Heights area. So again, we've kind of looked at who they are, and then we're building out some of their logos and things like that from there. They've got this nice full logo family. But with them, we also wanted to build some elements that they could use beyond that. So they also have icons that go with their services, which we'll see soon. They have some textures and patterns. But they also have these phrases that she's using all the time. Be kind to your skin. Take time for self-care. She was actually able to take these illustrations and blow them up and print them out in her brick and mortar. So that when you walk in, you see beauty with purpose, or you see some of these signage pieces up on the wall. But also she can give it out as a holiday card or like a, you know, a loyalty card. She can pull some of these illustrations and use them in that way too. And it's just part of her personality. It's building on her brand. Another thing for her is because she's in that, you know, feminine spa space, she's honing in on social media a lot for her advertising. So how can we bring some of these little fun elements? We put them in Canva for her. She can change out the type. She can use them as much as she wants, but laying these over some really beautiful photography just gives her a little bit of an edge on social media. That makes sense for her. We were thinking about her signage, but then we're also thinking about bringing character into life digitally. Again, your industry is going to have its own little wish list of what you would need visually to continue to build it out. And then the last one is an engineering firm. They're kind of throughout Texas too. So I'm honing in on all the local people, but we're showing a lot of texture and photography in there with them. And then also a lot of this geometric style. So yes, they have a really strong, cool logo that goes with them, but what can we do beyond that? And what can we do that kind of falls into that same camp, you know? Oops. Where were we? You can see here with their color palette, we're also bringing in some of these cool textures. That's just because they're outside, they're working in different industries. Another thing that we did for them was we have these accent pieces, some different architectural details, but all of their services, we're building those out into icons so that they can use those. They have such a like multifaceted business that we know there's going to be an education piece when they're bringing our new clients. So that's one way we can show it. And then also photography, they're going to work with a photographer. So since we know that, we can help them build out that style. But that's just to show you kind of how you have your logo, but how can you build a personality and build some design beyond that? The brand guide is going to be really great for that. And if you're working with a good designer, they'll always do a brand guide. I don't ever do a logo without a brand guide for the most part. So that should come together. That's just kind of how you can invest in your branding as one piece. And then once you have that, you really have those first tools towards enhancing your brand. You can take that and you can apply it to your website. You can apply it to custom graphics, whether that's seasonal, whether that's merch, apply it to your social media, your email marketing. You've got the pieces in place that now when you go to that next step of, okay, how am I going to market my business? You've got the tools that you need. I highly suggest, spending either really a lot of time DIYing this if that's something you're comfortable with, or honestly hiring out a designer for it. I have a ton of resources here, but I think that's our craft. That's what we do for a living, and we kind of know how to get to know you and kind of sometimes even for you to get out of your own head and be able to bounce ideas off of someone creative can be really helpful. And the sooner that you really do invest in your branding, the better, because it's one of those things where the longer you have it, the longer it's going to do that work for you. Places like Coca-Cola or Ford or Dr. Pepper, like they've had strong branding, and all they have to do is update it with the times, but it's leaving such a mark that people recognize them immediately. And I say, like, find someone who's kind of, you don't need to spend $20,000-$30,000 at an agency. I've worked in those agencies. I've worked on $1 million projects. You get the same level of work when you're working with like a small studio or a freelancer if you find the right person, which you know me now. But me or someone kind of similar to that level, I think that you can save yourself a lot of money by working with someone who's really going to sit down with you one-on-one. The number one thing that I say when you're working with a designer or marketing team, work with someone who gets on the phone with you, someone who cares about you, and really takes the time to, talk to you and get to know your business. On the other hand, you don't want to go too low either. If you're working with Fiverr or Upwork, personally, I think you might as well just DIY it or know that you're not really going to get that level of craft that a designer would provide. But that's just my 2 cents on like where to go when it comes to hiring. I don't think you need this crazy huge budget for a huge agency level, but I also think you kind of need to go a step up from some of the lower end work that you can find out there and just find someone who really takes the time, gets to know you. And freelance or small studios usually do that. They give you a lot of one-on-one time. But if you're also going to go down any sort of DIY path, or you're interested in, researching or looking up design inspo, then reference back to this resource page because there's a ton of different, websites and things that you can use too. But that is what I have.
All right, Natalie, what I like about what you offer, I've seen what you created for Chris, the branding guide or the branding kit. I saw that what's great is like Canva, which a lot of us use Canva, is that you can actually upload that branding kit into Canva, and so you can actually, whenever you create an ad, use the same font, colors, everything, your icons, your logos, everything else. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is that you can take those tools, and what I like to do with people, I love Canva. Like, I don't work in Canva because I'm more in the Adobe world, but I try to move my design work over to Canva when I can, like with that social media graphic example, because as small businesses, I want you to have the power to be able to go in and use the tools that you need. So, having those icons, those colors, having that set up. Now, if Christina wants to go in and make some social media posts, she's got what she needs for it. You know what I mean? But I'm all about like when you're working on your brand, make sure it's set up in a way that you're able to use it too.
Yes, I also want to add that, like she mentioned earlier, I requested something from the beginning to the end. So new branding, which I'm slowly putting out on my social media, which was my name was the actual branding, and worked with the color palettes and the icons and everything to the whole family. But for my nonprofit, I just needed her to clean up, for example, just the logo, not the words yet, because we're working on renaming the nonprofit. So she just did that piece. And I know I'll probably go back with her once we get what we want, then probably do the rest. Or let's say you already have your branding guide and you just want to work on your website. I mean, she could do specific to what you need. And I was very happy with my branding. So I mean, if you want to show it, Natalie, it's cool with me too. But
Yeah.
I was able to create the banner already for my LinkedIn, and I'm doing the same thing for my Facebook and my YouTube, but it's gonna be the same basically. But it's easy because when I do my posts, I just put those colors and it works.
Yeah. And that's the thing
So if you
too.
want to show mine, you can as an example.
Yeah, let me see if I can track down your brand guide real quick while we talk. Um, but no, like when
If
we
anybody
sat
has
down,
questions while she's doing that, yeah.
yeah, like we looked at her, her style. So you loved that like handwritten feel, but then also something strong that can kind of tie back to the military. We were pulling in from like some of your favorite colors and things like that. So it's really cool to see how your personality comes to life and all of that stuff. And that's the goal too. Like I want it to be some sort of story that you can tie back to, and really feels personal to you. But and like to her point, if you have a brand, if you have a logo, but you need social media or you need websites, like once you find someone who can kind of work in that creative field, like that's what I try to be for my clients. So it's really helpful to meet you where you're at in the process. Some people have a logo, but they don't have a logo family. So they come to me and they're like, can we expand on this? But it's good to find what part of the process you need. So let me see. I think
Ellie, I thought it was great information shared, and it did show that we were on track with what we have. We do have a logo family. We do have a brand guide with our different
yeah.
colors and our fonts. Some things that you pulled out, I didn't have or we didn't have was like
Mhm.
icons and personalities and phrases. So I thought that was very important for us going forward if I intend to
Kind of
launched
keep it.
again. But yeah, that was very good information shared.
Yeah, that's always good when you can look at it and be like, okay, I'm validated and I
Yeah,
did invest in the right
yeah.
brand guide, logo family, all of that. So,
We
that's always good.
we did a lot up front to ensure that our brand conveyed healthy, happy. When you look at
Mhm.
our brand, you look at our logo, whatever. Okay, it had that subliminal message, healthy and happy. From our colors and everything. So this is very good information that was shared.
Yeah,
Thank you so
that's
much.
awesome. Yeah, and it's good to see too, like you did your homework in the beginning. If you know healthy, happy, that's what I'm going for. That's
Mhm.
good to know you were able to like kind of build a vibe and build a design around that. That's awesome. I'll show you guys Christina's real quick too. So
Oh,
I'll scroll
nice.
through her brand guide, but we wanted something that tied to her military career. Christina, I always forget what that ranking is called, but we did a spin on it, as her logo mark.
Yeah, so my rank as a sergeant major or command sergeant major has a wreath. Arno, I
Mhm.
know you're Marine. I think you guys have wreaths too. I don't remember, but you know how they all have
Yeah.
stars when you're a sergeant major. So I like the star and the wreath, but I didn't want it to look too military. So if you notice, there's the W to kind of break it, and I didn't do the oval. I did the circle to make it look like a stamp at the same
Yeah.
time. So that's how we came up. But she actually created this like from scratch, and so I was very impressed. We went through several formats, but this was the one that I really liked the most.
Yeah. And we liked
Mhm.
that personality of bringing in some of you're an author, how could you have that signature feel to it, but then also something really strong in your last name. Logo family.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I loved the color palette for her too. We're breaking away from kind of that typical like army green, something that
Right.
plays into your favorite colors. So that was really fun. Typography, colors, we've got different icons more for her, like speaking, authors, podcasting, things like that are going to be in her industry. Some patterns that are bringing to life.
Wow.
Yeah, and what I do is I show it like this in a deck, but she'll have a pink version of this pattern and a beige, and she gets all the different colored options with everything too.
And the different formats too. So she gives it like JPEG, SMG, all this different other stuff that I don't have, but I have it. So if I need it, I have.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Very nice.
Yeah, definitely. And then like for her social media, some presentation slides, we gave those to her in Canva. She can build on them. And then just mocking up like how could we see this come to life in real life?
Right.
But of course, we started with all different concepts. We studied, usually like there's mood boards, then we're looking at a couple different logo concepts, and then we're going to look at color palettes and edits and things like that to get to this point. So a lot
Cool.
of fun, but I love how ours came together.
Yeah, I like it. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. But I always tell people like whether you're investing in this or this is something you want to do in-house, like if you just need someone in the marketing world or a designer to bounce ideas off of or ask questions, like shoot me an email. We can do a virtual coffee. We can get coffee in person if you're in San Antonio. Like I meet businesses from all different areas where some people are like, look, I have to DIY it. That's my budget, but can you look at it? And I'm all about like the connection that you can make with knowing different small businesses. So don't hold
Cool.
back. Ask questions.
I love it. For me, what I'm having trouble is I don't want my brand. I want my brand to be me, not just my business. So I want, because I need to create a second, like, who is Magdalena, and this is what Magdalena does, the different roles that I have. So that's where I am at. For my business, I do have the branding guide, which honestly, it's not as complete as what you showed. Now that I see it, I mean, I'm missing a lot of stuff. But more importantly, the step where I'm at is trying to tie everything together on me, who is, Chris shared what you did for her, and I really like it because it's very comprehensive. I love it. I'm just having trouble on how to connect what I do with who I am,
No, that makes sense. I mean, sometimes it's when it's so close to home, it can be harder. You know what I mean? Like for Chris, like she's an author. I've worked with podcasters before and business coaches, and like their business is them. You know what I mean? So there's sometimes you have to kind of get over that hurdle of it's so close to your own personality and who you are that, you have to find ways to bring that to life.
Right. That is exactly where I am right now. Thank you. This was very helpful.
Yeah, but that's always exciting because then you can point back to it and be like, this is so in touch with like me personally and my story. So once you get there, it's amazing, it's good to be able to point to that. And then like something like Arnold's business, like it's an industry, it's a product, separate from him, but he knows who he is. Like what you said about being happy and healthy, like you were able to make that distinction of, okay, well, I know my goals here and what I'm building. So that's what, if it's personal brand, you kind of have to lean into your own personality. If it's a industry or service or product, brick and mortar, then you kind of have to define that too. But all of that's like the emotional brain work that.
Yeah, it's the emotional. Honestly, yeah, you are completely right. It's part of the emotional connection that I'm trying to make it clear, And I think branding is what it's gonna give it that sense, it's gonna make it sense.
kind of give
Yeah.
it your own flair.
I might need to reach out to you.
Yeah, well, please do. Even if you just need some feedback or have questions, I'm always here. Sometimes it's
great.
good, like, to break out of your bubble too, and have someone who doesn't know you personally, who can be like,
Mhm.
oh, but I've gotten to know you and this is your thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Like your little partner there.
I know.
I
He's like,
know.
what are you talking about?
So sweet.
Well, Natalie, I appreciate your time. I'm going to stop the recording right now.
Perfect. Cool.